A billionaire visits her son's grave and finds a homeless mother crying with a child. She was shocked to find out who they are. Hello friends. Welcome to our story. Before we start, please like this video and subscribe. Also, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? New York? London? Maybe Canada or Jamaica? We want to know. Veronica Hayes was 60 years old, but grief had made her look 70. She was one of the richest women in the entire state. She owned shopping malls, apartment buildings, and fancy restaurants all across the city. People called her the Steel Queen, because nothing and nobody could make her change her mind once she decided something. But all her money couldn't buy back what she had lost 3 years ago. Her son. Her only child. Johnson. Every single month, on the 15th day, Veronica would drive her expensive black car to Greenwood Cemetery. She would walk past hundreds of graves until she reached the one with the tall marble stone that read, Johnson Hayes, beloved son, 1991 to 2022. Today was no different. It was a cold Thursday afternoon in November. Gray clouds covered the sky, and a soft wind made the tree leaves dance and fall. Veronica wore a long black coat and carried a bouquet of red roses, Johnson's favorite flowers. She walked slowly through the cemetery gates, her high heels clicking on the stone path. Everything was quiet except for the birds singing in the distance. But when Veronica turned the corner near Johnson's grave, she suddenly stopped walking. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth fell open. There, kneeling right in front of Johnson's marble stone, was a young woman wearing dirty clothes. The woman's arms were wrapped around a little girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old, who was crying into her shoulder. Both of them were sobbing like their hearts were broken into a million pieces. Veronica's hands tightened around her roses. A strange, hot feeling rushed through her chest. Anger, confusion, and something else she couldn't name. Who are these people? Why are they at my son's grave? She marched forward, her footsteps loud and sharp. Excuse me. Veronica's voice cut through the quiet cemetery like a blade. This is a private grave. You need to leave. Now. The young woman's head snapped up. Her face was red and swollen from crying. Her black eyes were full of tears, but there was something else there too. Something strong, something that wouldn't break easily. I'm so sorry, the woman said, her voice shaking. She quickly stood up, pulling the little girl close to her side. I didn't know you were coming today. That doesn't matter, Veronica said coldly, stepping closer. I asked you a question. Who are you? And why are you crying at my son's grave? The woman wiped her face with her sleeve. My name is Clara Mitchell. This is my daughter, Mary. Veronica looked down at the child. The little girl had big black eyes, dark short hair, and dark skin. She was thin, too thin, and her clothes looked old and worn. The child stared back at Veronica with an expression that made Veronica's heart skip a beat. Those eyes. That face. Something about her looked familiar. That still doesn't explain why you're here, Veronica snapped, pushing the thought away. This grave belongs to my family. My son Johnson Hayes. You have no business being here. Clara took a deep breath. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter but steadier. I know who he was. I come here every month because... She paused and looked down at Mary, because Johnson was important to us. Very important. Veronica felt ice run down her spine. Important how? She demanded. The wind picked up, making the tree branches creak above them. Clara's hand tightened around Mary's shoulder. Because, Clara said, lifting her chin and looking straight into Veronica's eyes, Johnson and I were together. We loved each other. And because Mary is his daughter. The roses fell from Veronica's hands. They scattered across the wet grass, red petals breaking apart and mixing with the dirt. Veronica couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The world seemed to tilt sideways. What did you just say? She whispered. Clara didn't look away. Mary is Johnson's child. Your granddaughter. That's impossible, Veronica hissed. My son would have told me. He told me everything. No, Clara said softly. He didn't. He wanted to, but he was afraid. He said you wouldn't approve. He said you would try to tear us apart. Veronica's face turned red with fury. How dare you? You're lying. You're some kind of scammer who heard about my money and... I'm not lying, Clara interrupted. Her voice was calm, but tears were rolling down her cheeks again. I worked at Tony's Diner on 5th Street. Johnson came in every Tuesday for coffee. We started talking. Then we fell in love. I got pregnant and he was happy about it. He wanted to be a father. Liar. Veronica shouted. If any of this was true, he would have introduced you to me. He would have brought you to our home. He tried, Clara said, her voice breaking. 3 times he almost told you. But every time he got scared. He said you had plans for him, plans to marry him to some rich woman from a good family. He said you would never accept a waitress. Never accept me. Veronica stared at the woman, her mind racing. Johnson had been acting strange in the months before he died. Sneaking out at odd hours. Smiling at his phone. Refusing to meet the daughters of her business partners. But this? A secret girlfriend? A secret child? Prove it, Veronica said through clenched teeth. Prove this child is related to my son, or I'll have you arrested for harassment. Clara reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, wrinkled photograph. She held it out with a trembling hand. Veronica snatched it. The photo showed Johnson, her Johnson, smiling that big, bright smile she hadn't seen in years, with his arm around a younger, healthier version of Clara. They were at some kind of park. Clara was holding a tiny baby wrapped in a yellow blanket. Johnson was kissing the baby's forehead. On the back in Johnson's handwriting it said, "My 2 girls. My whole world. J." Veronica's legs felt weak. She stumbled backward. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She looked at the little girl again, really looked this time. Mary had Johnson's nose. Johnson's chin. Johnson's gentle smile. And those eyes. Those brown eyes with tiny gold flecks. Johnson's eyes. Veronica's heart cracked open. 3 years. 3 years she had been alone, thinking her son's legacy had died with him. But here was his child. His daughter. Her granddaughter. Standing in front of her in torn sneakers and a jacket with holes in it. Living with a homeless waitress. Something dark and cold twisted in Veronica's chest. "Where do you live?" Veronica asked suddenly. Clara hesitated. We move around. Shelters mostly. Sometimes friends let us stay for a few days." "Shelters?" Veronica repeated, her voice rising. "You're raising my son's child in shelters?" "I'm doing the best I can," Clara said defensively. "I work 3 jobs but rent is expensive and childcare is—" "This is unacceptable," Veronica interrupted. Her mind was already working, calculating, planning. "That child is a Hayes. She has a right to stay with her mother," Clara said firmly, pulling Mary closer. "I know we don't have much but Mary is loved. She's safe. She's living on the street," Veronica shouted. "Eating from soup kitchens. Wearing clothes that don't fit. Is that what you call safe?" Clara's face went pale but her jaw was set. "We're managing." "You're failing," Veronica said coldly. "And I will not allow my granddaughter to suffer because of your poverty." "She's my daughter," Clara said, her voice shaking with emotion. "Johnson chose me. He loved me. And if he were here, he would want us to stay together." Veronica stepped forward until she was inches from Clara's face. "But he's not here," she said quietly, dangerously. "I am. And I have the power to give that child everything you never could. Education. Stability. A real home. A real future." "She already has a future," Clara whispered. "With me." Veronica looked at the homeless woman, at her worn-out clothes and desperate eyes, and something cruel bloomed in her heart. "My son's blood will not be wasted on garbage like you." "We'll see about that," Veronica said softly. She turned and walked away, leaving the roses scattered on the ground. But as she reached her car, she pulled out her phone and dialed a number. "Marcus," she said when someone answered. "I need you to investigate someone. Her name is Clara Mitchell. I want to know everything about her. Everything. And I want it by tomorrow morning." She hung up and looked back at the cemetery. Through the iron gates, she could see Clara and Mary walking away, hand in hand, disappearing into the gray afternoon. Veronica's eyes narrowed. "That child belongs to me now. And I always get what I want." The next morning, Veronica sat in her enormous office on the top floor of Hayes Tower, a glass building in the heart of the city that she owned. Her desk was made of dark wood and was bigger than most people's bedrooms. Behind her, floor-to-ceiling windows showed the entire city below, looking tiny and far away. Veronica hadn't slept all night. She kept thinking about that little girl. Mary. Her granddaughter. Johnson's daughter. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that photograph. Johnson smiling, kissing the baby's head, looking happier than she'd ever seen him. Why hadn't he told her? Why had he kept such a huge secret? "Because you would have destroyed it," a small voice whispered in her mind. "Because you would have done exactly what you're about to do now." Veronica pushed the thought away. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. The door opened and Marcus Chin walked in. He was Veronica's private investigator, A thin man in his 40s with sharp eyes and a briefcase full of secrets. For 15 years he had worked for Veronica, digging up information on business rivals, cheating partners, and anyone else she needed to know about. "Good morning, Mrs. Hayes," Marcus said, sitting down across from her. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "I have the information you requested." "Tell me everything," Veronica said, leaning forward. Marcus opened the folder. Clara Mitchell, age 32. Born and raised here in the city. She graduated high school but never went to college, couldn't afford it. For the past 8 years, she's worked as a waitress at various diners and restaurants. "Go on," Veronica said. "She met your son approximately 7 years ago at Tony's Diner, where she was working the morning shift. According to her former co-workers, Johnson came in regularly, and they started dating about 6 months later." Veronica's jaw tightened. 7 years. He kept this from me for 7 years. "The child, Mary Mitchell, is 6 years old," Marcus continued. "Born on March 15th. Johnson was listed as the father on the birth certificate, though it appears he never formally acknowledged her publicly. Because he was hiding her," Veronica muttered bitterly. Marcus cleared his throat. After Johnson's death 3 years ago, Clara's situation deteriorated rapidly. She was evicted from her apartment 8 months later when she couldn't pay rent. Since then, she and the child have been moving between homeless shelters, staying with friends occasionally, and sleeping in her car when there's no other option. Veronica felt a strange twist in her stomach. She pushed it down. "What about her criminal record?" Veronica asked. Marcus flipped a page. "Clean. No arrests, no charges, not even a parking ticket. She's never been in trouble with the law." "What about drugs? Alcohol?" "No evidence of substance abuse. Her former employers describe her as hardworking and reliable, though she's been let go from several jobs recently due to missing shifts, likely because of childcare issues." Veronica drummed her fingers on the desk, thinking. "What about the child? Mary? Is she in school?" "She was enrolled in public school last year but has missed significant time due to their housing instability. According to school records, she's a bright student but struggles with attendance." Veronica stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Somewhere down there, her granddaughter was living in a shelter, missing school, wearing hand-me-down clothes. Johnson's daughter. My blood. Living like that. "I want DNA testing," Veronica said suddenly. "I need legal proof that child is Johnson's." Marcus nodded. "I anticipated that. I've already arranged for a testing facility. However, you'll need Clara's cooperation to test the child." "Then I'll get it," Veronica said coldly. "One way or another." 3 days later, Veronica returned to the cemetery. She knew Clara would be there. Marcus had been following her, and he'd reported that Clara came to Johnson's grave every Thursday afternoon when Mary was at a free after-school program at the community center. Sure enough, when Veronica arrived, she saw Clara kneeling by the grave, arranging a small bunch of wildflowers she must have picked from somewhere. Veronica walked up quietly, her shadow falling over Clara. Clara looked up, startled. When she saw who it was, fear flashed across her face. "Mrs. Hayes," Clara said, standing quickly. I was just leaving." "Don't," Veronica said. Her voice was softer than before, more controlled. "I want to talk to you." Clara wrapped her arms around herself, looking nervous. "About what?" "About Mary," Veronica said. "About my granddaughter." Clara's eyes narrowed slightly. "What about her?" Veronica took a breath. She had practiced this conversation in her head a dozen times. "I've been thinking about what you said," Veronica began. "About Johnson. About your relationship with him. And I believe you might be telling the truth." Clara blinked, surprised. "You do?" "I had you investigated," Veronica admitted. "I found evidence that supports your story. The timeline matches. And the child, she does look like him." Clara's shoulders relaxed slightly. "So you believe me now?" "I'm willing to consider it," Veronica said carefully. "But I need proof. Legal proof. I need a DNA test to confirm Mary is Johnson's biological daughter." Clara's face hardened. "What? So you can take her away from me?" "No," Veronica lied smoothly. "So I can help you. Both of you." Clara stared at her suspiciously. "Help us how?" Veronica gestured around them. "Look at your situation, Clara. You're homeless. You're working multiple jobs just to feed your daughter. She's missing school. She doesn't have stability or security. Don't you want better for her?" "Of course I do," Clara said, her voice rising. "I want everything for her. but I'm doing the best I can with what I have. I know, Veronica said, her voice gentle, but fake. And I respect that. You're a fighter. But Mary is also a Hayes. She has a right to her father's legacy, to her inheritance, to the life Johnson would have wanted for her. Clara shook her head. Johnson wanted her to have love. That's what he cared about. Not money. She can have both, Veronica said. Let me help you. Let me set up a trust fund for Mary's education. Let me find you proper housing. Let me give you the support you need to take care of her properly. Clara looked uncertain now, torn between hope and suspicion. All I'm asking, Veronica continued, is for a simple DNA test. Once we have legal confirmation that Mary is Johnson's daughter, I can begin the process of providing for her future. Isn't that what you want? For her to have opportunities? Clara bit her lip, thinking hard. Just a test, she asked quietly. Just a test, Veronica confirmed. Nothing more. You have my word. It was a lie, of course. Veronica had no intention of just helping. She had plans, big plans, that Clara couldn't even imagine. But Clara, exhausted and desperate and wanting so badly to believe that someone would finally help them, made a mistake. She said yes. 1 week later, the DNA results came back. Veronica sat in her office, holding the official document from the testing laboratory. Her hands trembled slightly as she read the conclusion. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. Johnson Hayes is the biological father of Mary Mitchell. Veronica set the paper down and closed her eyes. It was real. The homeless woman's child was her granddaughter, Johnson's daughter. The last piece of her son that still existed in this world. For a moment, just a brief moment, Veronica felt something soft in her chest. Something that might have been love or joy or hope. But then she thought about Clara. That woman. That poor, uneducated waitress who had stolen Johnson's heart. Who had pulled him away from his real life, his real future, his real family. Who was now raising a Hayes child in poverty. The soft feeling hardened into something cold and sharp. My granddaughter will not grow up in shelters. She will not wear donated clothes. She will not eat from food banks. She will be raised properly. With discipline. With education. With everything money can buy. But not by her. Veronica picked up her phone and called her lawyer. Richard, she said when he answered. I need you to prepare custody papers. I'm going to take custody of my granddaughter. There was a pause on the other end. On what grounds, Mrs. Hayes? Veronica smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. On the grounds that the mother is unfit, homeless, unstable, unable to provide basic necessities. That might be difficult to prove in court, Richard warned. Unless there's evidence of neglect or abuse. Then find evidence, Veronica said sharply. Or create it. I don't care how you do it. That child belongs with me, and I will not let some beggar woman stand in my way. Another pause. Mrs. Hayes, I have to advise you that what you're suggesting could be. I'm not asking for advice, Richard, Veronica interrupted. I'm giving you instructions. File the custody papers. We're going to war. She hung up the phone. Outside her window, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Veronica looked at the DNA report one more time, at Mary's name printed in black ink. Johnson's daughter. My blood. My family. My. And Veronica Hayes always got what she wanted. No matter what it cost. No matter who got hurt. 2 weeks passed. Clara noticed that things were getting strange. First, there was the social worker who showed up at the shelter where she and Mary were staying. The woman asked a lot of questions. Too many questions. About where Mary slept. What she ate. How often she missed school. Whether Clara ever left her alone. Clara answered honestly because she had nothing to hide. She loved her daughter. She took care of her the best she could. But the social worker wrote everything down in a little notebook, and her face stayed cold and blank the whole time. Then there was the manager at the diner where Clara worked. He called her into his office and said there had been complaints about her work. That customers said she was rude. That money had gone missing from the register during her shifts. Clara was shocked. She had never been rude to anyone. And she would never steal, not even a penny. But the manager didn't believe her. He said he had to let her go. Clara left the diner in tears, her last paycheck in her pocket. Money that would only last them a few more days. Something was wrong. Very wrong. She felt like someone was watching her. Following her. Trying to destroy her life piece by piece. And then one rainy Tuesday afternoon she found out who. Clara was walking Mary home from school, or rather back to the shelter, when a police car pulled up beside them. Two officers got out. Mary grabbed her mother's hand, frightened. "Clara Mitchell?" one of the officers asked. Clara's heart started pounding. "Yes? What's wrong?" "You need to come with us, ma'am," the officer said. "You're under arrest." The world stopped spinning. "What?" Clara gasped. "Arrested for what? I didn't do anything." "You're being charged with theft," the second officer said, pulling out handcuffs. $500 was stolen from the diner where you worked. The manager filed a police report. "No," Clara cried. "That's not true. I never stole anything. This is a mistake." But the officers weren't listening. They turned her around and put the cold metal handcuffs on her wrists. Mary started screaming. "Don't take my mommy. Please. She didn't do anything wrong." Clara looked down at her daughter, tears streaming down her face. "Mary, baby, listen to me. This is a mistake, okay? Mommy will fix this. I promise. I'll be back soon." "Ma'am, we need to contact child services," one officer said. "The child can't be left alone." "No." Clara struggled against the handcuffs. "Please? She has nowhere to go. I'm all she has." "A social worker is already on the way," the officer said. Mary was sobbing now, clinging to her mother's leg. "Mommy, don't leave me. Please." Clara's heart was breaking into a million pieces. "I love you, baby. Remember that. I love you so much. I'll come back for you. I promise." The officers pulled Clara toward the police car. Mary tried to follow, but one of the officers gently held her back. As they drove away, Clara looked through the back window and saw her daughter standing on the sidewalk in the rain, crying and reaching out for her. It was the last time Clara would see Mary for 20 years. The trial happened fast. Too fast. Clara barely understood what was happening. She was given a public defender, a tired young lawyer who seemed overwhelmed and distracted. He told her the evidence against her was strong. The diner manager testified that Clara had been working alone when the money disappeared. Security footage showed her near the register. And somehow, impossibly, the stolen $500 was found in Clara's bag during a search of her belongings at the shelter. Clara kept saying she was innocent, that someone must have planted the money, that this was all a setup. But who would believe a homeless woman over a respected business owner? The jury certainly didn't. They found her guilty of theft. The judge, looking down at Clara with disappointment, said that while the crime itself wasn't severe, Clara's circumstances, her homelessness, her instability, her inability to provide for her child, showed a pattern of poor judgment. He sentenced her to 20 years in prison. Clara screamed. She begged. She cried that she had a daughter who needed her. But the judge's decision was final. As the guards led her away, Clara saw someone sitting in the back of the courtroom. Veronica Hayes. The old woman sat perfectly still, wearing an expensive black suit. Her face showed no emotion. But her eyes were cold and satisfied. And in that moment, Clara understood everything. This wasn't about theft. This was about Mary. Veronica had framed her, had destroyed her life, had stolen her daughter. "You monster!" Clara screamed, fighting against the guards. "You did this. You took everything from me." Veronica stood up calmly and walked toward the exit. But just before she left, she turned and looked at Clara one last time. Their eyes met. And Veronica smiled. A small, cruel smile that said, "I won. And you lost everything." Then she was gone. Clara collapsed, sobbing, as the guards dragged her away to begin her sentence. 20 years. 20 years stolen from her. 20 years without her daughter. All because a billionaire wanted what Clara had, and had the power to take it. That same evening, Veronica returned to her mansion. In one of the guest rooms upstairs, Mary sat on a huge bed, looking tiny and lost. She was wearing new clothes, expensive ones, that Veronica had bought for her. Her hair had been washed and brushed. She looked clean and neat. But her eyes were red from crying. "Where's my mommy?" Mary asked for the 100th time. Her voice was small and broken. Veronica sat down in a chair across from her. She had practiced what to say. "Mary," Veronica said gently, "your mother is sick. She's gone to a place where doctors can help her get better." It was a lie. But Mary was only 6 years old. She wouldn't understand the truth. "When is she coming back?" Mary asked. "I don't know, sweetheart," Veronica said. "It might be a very long time. But don't worry. You're going to stay here with me. I'm your grandmother. Your father was my son. That means your family. And I'm going to take care of you." Mary started crying again. "I want my mommy." "I know," Veronica said. "But your mommy can't take care of you right now. She made some bad choices. She wasn't able to give you what you need. She loves me. Mary sobbed. Love isn't enough, Veronica said firmly. You need food, clothes, a home, school, a future. Your mother couldn't give you those things. But I can. Mary buried her face in the pillow, her small body shaking with sobs. Veronica watched her for a moment, feeling that strange twist in her chest again, something that might have been guilt. But she pushed it away. This is for the best, she told herself. The child will forget about her mother eventually. She'll grow up here in luxury with opportunities Clara could never provide. She'll thank me someday. Veronica stood and walked to the door. Tomorrow we'll go shopping, she said. I'll buy you toys, books, whatever you want. You'll see, Mary. Life is going to be much better now. She closed the door behind her, leaving Mary alone in the big, cold room. In the hallway, Veronica pulled out her phone and called her lawyer. Richard, it's done, she said. The custody papers were approved this afternoon. Mary is legally mine now. Congratulations, Mrs. Hayes, Richard said. Veronica looked back at the closed door, hearing Mary's muffled crying through the wood. Yes, she said quietly. Congratulations. But as she walked down the long hallway toward her own bedroom, Veronica didn't feel victorious. She felt empty. Just like she had for the past 3 years since Johnson died. Only now, instead of one ghost haunting her, she had two, her dead son, and the woman whose life she had destroyed. But Veronica Hayes didn't believe in regret. She believed in winning. And she had won. The years crawled by in prison. Clara's world became small. A narrow bed, gray walls, and a tiny window high up near the ceiling. Every morning started the same way. Wake up. Work in the laundry room. Eat bland food. Go back to her cell. Sleep. But every single day Clara thought about Mary. Is she scared? Does she cry for me at night? Does she know I didn't leave her? Clara tried to stay strong. She folded clothes and sheets for hours, her hands working automatically while her mind wandered far away, back to her daughter's smile, her little voice, the way she used to curl up in Clara's arms at night. In the evenings, Clara would sit on her bed and talk to Mary as if she were there. I'm still here, baby, she would whisper. Mommy didn't forget you. I'll never forget you. 20 years felt like forever. But Clara held on to hope like it was the only thing keeping her alive. She wrote letters, so many letters. She wrote about how much she loved Mary, how she was innocent, how she would come back someday. She begged whoever read the letters to please let Mary know her mother was thinking of her. The letters were addressed to Veronica's mansion. But they never reached Mary. Veronica burned every single one. At the mansion, Mary was changing. The first year was the hardest. Mary cried every night asking for her mommy. She refused to eat. She had nightmares. She would wake up screaming, thinking she was back in the shelter. But Veronica didn't give up. She sat with Mary during the nightmares. She made sure Mary had warm meals. She enrolled her in a private school with the best teachers. She bought her books and toys and pretty dresses. And most importantly, Veronica was always there. Not warm. Not affectionate. But present. Steady. Over time, something shifted. Mary stopped asking about her mother. The nightmares became less frequent. She started doing well in school. She learned piano. She made a few carefully chosen friends from other wealthy families. By the time Mary turned 12, the little girl who had cried for her mommy was gone. In her place was someone new, someone polite, well-spoken, and controlled. Someone who looked like she belonged in the mansion. Veronica watched it happen with satisfaction. See, I was right. The child needed structure, discipline, a proper life. But there was something Veronica didn't see. Mary never smiled anymore. Not really. She was successful, yes. Obedient, yes. But there was a coldness in her now, a wall she had built around her heart to survive the pain of losing her mother. Mary learned not to love too deeply, not to trust too easily, not to need anyone. She became exactly like Veronica. The years rolled on. Mary graduated top of her class in high school. She went to a prestigious university and studied business management. She was sharp, focused, and ambitious. People respected her. Some feared her a little. And now she ran her own company, Hayes Marketing Solutions, a firm that helped businesses advertise their products. She had a modern apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows. She wore designer clothes. She drove a silver car that purred like a cat. Her life looked perfect. But Mary felt nothing. She went through the motions, work, meetings, dinners with colleagues, visits to Veronica on weekends. But inside there was just emptiness. Sometimes late at night, Mary would stand by her window and look out at the city lights, and feel like she was supposed to be somewhere else. With someone else. Like part of her was missing. But she didn't know what it was. Or maybe she had forgotten. 20 years after the trial, Clara walked out of prison. She was 46 years old now. Her hair had streaks of gray. Her face had new lines. Her body was thinner, harder. But her eyes still burned with the same fierce love they always had. The prison gave her $40 and a bus ticket. Clara stood outside the gates, breathing free air for the first time in 2 decades, and whispered one word. Mary. She had no idea where her daughter was. No idea if Mary even remembered her. But Clara knew one thing, she was going to find her. She took the bus into the city and started looking for work. Any work. No one wanted to hire an ex-convict. Door after door closed in her face. Finally, a cleaning company agreed to give her a chance. The pay was terrible, just enough to rent a tiny room in a rundown building, but Clara didn't care. She was free. And she was going to rebuild her life, one step at a time. The cleaning company sent Clara to different office buildings around the city. She mopped floors, emptied trash cans, and scrubbed toilets. It was hard work. Her knees ached. Her back hurt. But Clara didn't complain. She was just grateful to be alive. To be out. To have a chance. One morning, Clara was assigned to a tall glass building downtown, a corporate headquarters for a big company. She arrived early, put on her uniform, and started her rounds. The lobby was huge and shiny, with marble floors and expensive art on the walls. Business people in suits walked past her without even glancing her way. Clara didn't mind. She was used to being invisible. She pushed her cleaning cart toward the elevators and began wiping down the mirrors. A few minutes later, a young woman walked into the lobby. She was in her mid-20s, wearing a sharp gray suit and carrying a leather briefcase. Her hair was pulled back neatly. She walked with confidence, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Clara happened to glance up as the woman passed by. For a moment, Clara felt something strange, a warm pull in her chest. Like a soft tug she couldn't explain. She watched the young woman press the elevator button, still feeling that odd sensation. Why do I feel like I know her? But that didn't make sense. Clara had been in prison for 20 years. She didn't know anyone in the city anymore. The young woman turned slightly, waiting for the elevator, and caught Clara looking at her. Their eyes met. And something happened. The young woman's expression changed, just for a second. Her confident look softened. She tilted her head slightly, like she was trying to remember something. Clara felt her heart beat faster. That strange warmth in her chest grew stronger. The young woman smiled, a small, uncertain smile, and said, "Good morning." "Good morning," Clara whispered back. The elevator doors opened. The young woman stepped inside, but before the doors closed, she looked back at Clara one more time. That same puzzled expression on her face. Then she was gone. Clara stood there, her hand still holding the cleaning cloth, feeling shaken. What was that? She didn't understand it. But something about that woman felt familiar, safe, important. Like seeing someone from a dream she couldn't quite remember. Upstairs in her office, Mary sat at her desk, staring at her computer screen. But she wasn't seeing it. She was thinking about the cleaning woman in the lobby. Why did I feel that way? Mary had felt something when their eyes met. A sudden warmth, a feeling of comfort she couldn't explain. Like coming home after a long trip. But she had never seen that woman before in her life. "I'm just tired," Mary told herself. "I've been working too much." She forced herself to focus on her emails. But all morning she couldn't shake the feeling. And when lunchtime came, Mary found herself walking down to the lobby, telling herself she just needed some fresh air. Clara was there, wiping down the glass doors. Mary slowed her steps, watching her. The woman worked quietly, carefully. There was something gentle about her movements. Something kind in her face. Clara looked up and saw Mary. Again that feeling, like electricity in the air between them. "Hi again," Mary said, surprising herself. Clara straightened up, looking nervous. "Hello, ma'am. You're new here, aren't you?" Mary asked, taking a step closer. "Yes, ma'am." "This is my first week," Clara said softly. Mary nodded. There was a pause. Neither of them moved. "I'm Mary," she said finally. Clara's breath caught. Her hands tightened around the cleaning cloth. "Clara," she managed to say. "My name is Clara." They stood there looking at each other, both feeling that strange, powerful pull. "It's nice to meet you, Clara," Mary said. And she meant it. She didn't know why, but she felt calmer just standing near this woman. "Nice to meet you too," Clara whispered, tears threatening to fill her eyes. Mary noticed the emotion on Clara's face. "Are you okay?" "Yes," Clara said quickly, wiping her eyes. Sorry? You remind me of someone. Someone I knew a long time ago. Mary felt a strange ache in her chest. You remind me of someone too. But I don't know who. They stood in silence for another moment. Then Mary's phone buzzed. A meeting reminder. I have to go, Mary said, sounding almost disappointed. But I'll see you around, Clara. Yes, Clara said, her voice breaking slightly. I'll be here. Mary walked toward the elevators, but she looked back twice. Clara watched her go, tears streaming down her face now. She didn't know why, but being near Mary felt right. Felt like the missing piece she'd been searching for. And Mary, riding the elevator back to her office, felt that same inexplicable pull. Like she had just met someone who mattered. Someone important. Someone she needed. But neither of them understood why. Over the next few weeks, something beautiful and strange began to happen. Mary started coming down to the lobby more often. At first, she told herself it was just for coffee breaks or fresh air. But really she was looking for Clara. And Clara began timing her cleaning schedule so she would be in the lobby when Mary arrived in the morning. They started having small conversations. How was your weekend? Mary would ask. Quiet, Clara would say, smiling softly. How was yours? Busy. Always busy. The conversations were simple, but they felt meaningful. Mary found herself telling Clara things she never told anyone. About feeling empty despite her success, about not remembering much of her childhood, about the strange loneliness that followed her everywhere. And Clara listened. Really listened. Sometimes Mary would bring Clara coffee. Sometimes Clara would leave little encouraging notes on Mary's desk when she cleaned her office. People at the company started noticing. Why are you so friendly with the cleaning lady? One of Mary's colleagues asked. Mary didn't know how to explain it. I don't know, she said honestly. I just feel better when I talk to her. Like she understands me. What Mary didn't say was this. Being around Clara made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt since she was a little girl. And Clara was living in a bittersweet heaven. Every day she got to see Clara. Talk to her. Watch her smile. But Mary didn't know who she was. And Clara didn't know she was her daughter either. 3 months passed. Mary and Clara's friendship grew deeper. Clara learned that Mary loved lemon tea but hated coffee with too much sugar. That she worked late most nights. That she visited her grandmother every other weekend but never seemed happy about it. Mary learned that Clara lived alone in a small apartment. That she had been through hard times but never complained. That she had a way of making Mary feel calm just by being near. But neither woman knew the real connection between them. Clara still didn't realize that the successful businesswoman she cleaned for was her daughter. 20 years had passed. Mary had been 6 when they were separated. Now she was 26. A completely different person. And Mary had no memory of her mother. The years with Veronica had erased almost everything from her early childhood. All they knew was that being together felt right. One afternoon, Mary was having a terrible day. A big project had fallen apart. She felt exhausted and defeated. She went down to the lobby hoping to find Clara. Clara was there cleaning the windows. Bad day? Clara asked gently, seeing Mary's face. Mary nodded, feeling tears threaten to spill. Everything went wrong. I don't know why I even try anymore. Clara set down her cleaning supplies and sat on one of the lobby benches. She patted the spot next to her. Mary sat down and without thinking, leaned her head against Clara's shoulder. Clara froze for a moment, then slowly put her arm around Mary. They sat like that for a long time, not speaking. Mary felt something break open inside her. A dam of loneliness she had been holding back for years. I feel so alone, Mary whispered. I have everything I'm supposed to want, but I feel empty all the time. Like something's missing. Like I lost something important a long time ago, but I can't remember what it was. Clara's eyes filled with tears. She held Mary tighter. You're not alone, Clara said softly. Not anymore. Mary closed her eyes. Why do I feel so safe with you? I barely know you, but when I'm with you, I feel, I don't know, like I'm home. Clara's heart was breaking and healing at the same time. Maybe some people are just meant to find each other, Clara said quietly. They sat together until Mary felt strong enough to go back upstairs. One evening, Mary was working late in her office. Most people had gone home. The building was quiet. Clara came in to empty the trash and clean. You're still here? Clara asked, surprised. Mary looked up from her computer, rubbing her tired eyes. Big presentation tomorrow. I have to finish this. Clara noticed Mary hadn't eaten. There was no food on her desk, just empty coffee cups. Have you had dinner? Clara asked. Mary shook her head. I'll eat when I get home. Clara frowned. Wait here. She left and came back 15 minutes later with a sandwich and a bottle of water from the cafeteria downstairs. Eat, Clara said, putting the food on Mary's desk. You can't work if you don't take care of yourself. Mary looked at the sandwich, then at Clara, and suddenly felt emotion rise in her throat. No one ever took care of her like this. Veronica had given her money, education, opportunities, but never this kind of simple, warm care. Thank you, Mary said, her voice shaking slightly. Clara smiled. You remind me of someone I knew. Someone who used to forget to eat when she was worried too. Who? Mary asked. Clara's smile turned sad. Someone I loved very much. Someone I lost. Mary wanted to ask more, but something in Clara's expression stopped her. Instead, she took a bite of the sandwich. Clara stayed and talked with her while she ate, asking about the presentation, encouraging her, and making her laugh with a silly story about a bird that had flown into the lobby that morning. By the time Clara left, Mary felt stronger and more confused than ever about why this woman meant so much to her. One Thursday evening, Veronica decided to visit Mary's office. She wanted to check on a business deal Mary was working on. She didn't call ahead, she never did. She believed she had the right to show up whenever she wanted. Veronica took the elevator to the 15th floor. She walked down the hallway toward Mary's office. And then she stopped. Through the glass wall of Mary's office, she could see Mary sitting at her desk, laughing and talking with someone. A cleaning woman. A cleaning woman with gray hair and tired eyes. A cleaning woman Veronica recognized instantly, even after 20 years. Claire. Veronica's blood turned to ice. No. This is impossible. She was supposed to stay in prison. She was supposed to disappear. But there she was. Alive. Free. And sitting with Mary. Talking to Mary. Veronica's hands clenched into fists. She turned and walked quickly back to the elevator, her mind racing. How long has this been going on? Does Mary know who she is? Has Clara told her the truth? Veronica pulled out her phone and called Mary. Inside the office, Mary's phone rang. Sorry, Mary said to Clara. I should take this. She answered. Hello, grandmother. Mary, Veronica said, her voice tight and controlled. I need you to do something for me. What is it? There's a cleaning woman working in your building. Her name is Clara Mitchell. I want you to fire her. Mary frowned. Fire her? Why? Because I said so, Veronica snapped. She's not fit to work in your company. Get rid of her. Immediately. Mary felt anger rise in her chest, something rare for her. No. Silence. What did you say? Veronica asked dangerously. I said no, Mary repeated, her voice stronger now. Clara's a good person. She works hard. I'm not firing her just because you tell me to. Mary? Goodbye, grandmother, Mary said and hung up. Clara watched Mary with wide eyes. Was that about me? Mary set her phone down. Yes, but don't worry. You're not going anywhere. Clara felt tears well up in her eyes. Thank you. But both women felt a chill run down their spines. Because they both knew, Veronica Hayes didn't lose. And she wouldn't let this go. Veronica didn't sleep that night. She sat in her study, a glass of wine in her hand, staring at the fireplace. How dare Mary refuse me? How dare she choose that woman over me? For 20 years, Veronica had controlled everything. She had raised Mary, fed her, clothed her, paid for her education, made her into the successful woman she was today. And now Mary was throwing it all back in her face. For a cleaning woman. Veronica's jaw tightened. This is Clara's fault. She's poisoning Mary against me. She's trying to steal her back. Veronica knew she had to act quickly. Before Clara could tell Mary the truth. Before everything Veronica had built came crashing down. She made a decision. Tomorrow she would go to Mary's building. She would confront Clara herself. And she would make sure Clara understood. Some battles can't be won. The next evening, Veronica arrived at the glass tower just as the sun was setting. She took the elevator to the parking garage beneath the building. She knew Clara's shift ended at 9 o'clock, and the cleaning staff always left through the garage entrance. Veronica waited in the shadows near the exit, her expensive coat wrapped around her, her eyes cold and focused. At exactly 9:15, Clara pushed through the door, tired after a long night of work. She was pulling her old jacket on, ready to walk to the bus stop. Hello, Clara, Veronica said, stepping out of the shadows. Clara jumped, startled. When she saw who it was, her face went pale. You, Clara whispered. Yes, me. Veronica walked closer. We need to talk. Clara's hands clenched into fists. I have nothing to say to you. You destroyed my life. You stole my daughter. You sent me to prison for a crime I didn't commit. And I'd do it again, Veronica said coldly. That child needed a real home. A real future. Not a homeless shelter and a mother who couldn't provide for her. I loved her. Clara shouted, her voice echoing through the empty garage. That's more than you ever gave her. I know what kind of life Mary has had with you. Cold, controlled, loveless. Veronica's eyes narrowed. You know nothing about her life. I know more than you think, Clara said. We've been talking. For weeks now. And I can see it in her eyes, she's not happy. You turned her into a robot. A perfect little business machine. But you never gave her what she really needed. And what is that? Veronica asked mockingly. Love, Clara said simply. Real love. Not control. Not manipulation. Just love. Veronica laughed. A harsh, bitter sound. Love doesn't pay bills. Love doesn't build empires. Love doesn't give you success and security. No, Clara agreed. But it gives you a reason to live. Something you clearly don't understand. Veronica stepped closer until she was inches from Clara's face. Listen to me very carefully, she said, her voice low and dangerous. You will stay away from Mary. You will quit your job. You will leave this city. And if you ever try to contact her again, I will destroy you. Again. Only this time, it won't be 20 years in prison. It will be something much worse. Clara stood her ground, not backing away. I'm not afraid of you anymore. Then you're a fool, Veronica hissed. Maybe, Clara said. But I'm also a mother. And a mother never stops fighting for her child. Never. Not even after 20 years. Mary is my granddaughter, Veronica said. She belongs to me. Not you. She doesn't belong to anyone, Clara shouted. She's a human being. Not a possession. Not a trophy. When are you going to understand that? I understand perfectly, Veronica said. I understand that you are nothing. A poor, pathetic woman who lost everything because you were weak. And I understand that if you try to tell Mary who you are, I will make sure she never believes you. I have lawyers. Money. Power. What do you have? Clara's eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed strong. I have the truth. And the truth always comes out eventually. Veronica opened her mouth to respond, but then she heard something. Footsteps. Both women turned. Mary stood at the garage entrance, her purse in her hand, her face frozen in shock. She had heard everything. The silence in the garage was deafening. Mary stared at the two women, her mind trying to process what she just heard. You stole my daughter. Sent me to prison for a crime I didn't commit. A mother never stops fighting for her child. Mary, Veronica said quickly, her voice suddenly soft. This isn't what it looks like. But Mary's eyes were on Clara. On the older woman's tear-stained face. On the way she was looking at Mary with such desperate, painful love. What did she mean? Mary asked, her voice shaking. When she said you stole her daughter? Veronica stepped forward. Mary, this woman is insane. She's been harassing our family for years. She's trying to. I asked her, Mary interrupted, still looking at Clara. Not you. Clara's whole body was trembling. This was the moment she'd been terrified of for 20 years. The moment when she would have to tell Mary the truth and risk losing her all over again. But there was no choice now. Mary, Clara whispered. I'm your mother. The words hung in the air like thunder. Mary took a step back, shaking her head. No, that's not possible. My mother died when I was little. Grandmother told me. She lied, Clara said, tears streaming down her face. Your grandmother framed me for theft 20 years ago. She had me arrested and sent to prison. She took you away from me when you were 6 years old. And I've been searching for you ever since. Mary looked at Veronica. That's not true. Tell me that's not true. Veronica's face was like stone. Mary, you need to listen to me. Is it true? Mary screamed. The sound echoed through the garage. Veronica's silence was answer enough. Mary's legs felt weak. She stumbled backward, leaning against a concrete pillar for support. I had dreams, Mary whispered. Dreams of a woman who sang to me, who held me, who called me baby. She looked at Clara with wide, desperate eyes. Was that you? Clara nodded, unable to speak through her sobs. You're lying, Mary said, but her voice had no conviction. This is some kind of trick. Some kind of scam. I'm not lying, Clara said. She reached into her pocket with shaking hands and pulled out the old photograph, the one she'd kept hidden all these years. The one of her and Johnson and baby Mary. Look, please, just look. Mary took the photo. Her hands were shaking so hard she almost dropped it. But she saw it. Her father, Johnson, the man she'd only seen in other photographs in Veronica's mansion. With Clara. And with a baby. A baby that looked exactly like Mary had looked in her own baby pictures. No, Mary whispered. No, no, no. I loved you, Clara said, her voice breaking. I loved you more than anything in the world. And she took you from me. She sent me to prison for 20 years. She let you grow up thinking I was dead. But I never forgot you. Not for a single day. Not for a single moment. Mary looked at Veronica. How could you? How could you do this to me? To her? Because I was protecting you. Veronica said, her composure finally cracking. She was homeless. She couldn't take care of you. You were living in shelters, Mary. Eating from food banks. Missing school. I gave you everything. Everything she never could. You gave me everything except the truth. Mary shouted. You let me believe my mother was dead. You stole 20 years of our lives. I gave you a future. Veronica shot back. Look at what you've become. Successful. Wealthy. Respected. Would you have had any of that with her? Mary's eyes blazed with anger. I would have had a mother. I would have had love. Do you know how many nights I cried myself to sleep wishing I had a mom? Do you know how lonely I was growing up in that cold mansion with you? I did my best. Your best was a lie. Mary screamed. My entire life has been a lie. She turned to Clara, tears streaming down her face. Is it really true? Are you really my mother? Clara nodded, her heart breaking and healing at the same time. Yes, baby. I'm your mother. I've always been your mother. Mary started crying harder, deep, painful sobs that came from 20 years of missing something she didn't even know she'd lost. Clara opened her arms. And Mary, without thinking, without hesitating, ran into them. Mother and daughter held each other for the first time in 20 years, both of them crying, both of them shaking, both of them finally whole. Veronica watched them, her face pale, her hands trembling. She had lost. After all her planning, all her money, all her power, she had lost the one thing that mattered. Mary, Veronica said quietly, please, let me explain. Don't, Mary said, her voice muffled against Clara's shoulder. Don't say another word to me. I never want to see you again. Mary, you can't mean that. I mean it, Mary said, pulling back and looking at Veronica with red, swollen eyes. You're not my grandmother. You're a stranger. A cruel, heartless stranger who destroyed my family. I am your family. Veronica said desperately. No, Mary said firmly. She is. She took Clara's hand. She's my mother. And I choose her. Veronica felt something crack inside her chest. All these years she told herself she did the right thing. That taking Mary was justified. That Clara wasn't good enough. But now, watching Mary look at Clara with such love that Mary had never, ever shown her, Veronica finally understood what she'd really done. She'd stolen love. And you can't buy love back. You can't force it. You can't own it. Please, Veronica whispered, and for the first time in decades, there were tears in her eyes. Please don't leave me alone. But Mary was already walking away, her arm around Clara, supporting the mother she'd finally found again. They walked to the garage exit together and disappeared into the night. Veronica stood alone in the empty parking garage, surrounded by expensive cars and concrete and shadows. She had everything money could buy. And she had nothing at all. The next few weeks were not easy. Mary took time off from work. She needed space to think, to process, to understand what her life had really been. She moved out of Veronica's mansion that very night, taking only her clothes and a few personal belongings. She rented a small apartment across town, nothing fancy, but it was hers. Clara moved in with her. At first it felt strange. They were mother and daughter, but also strangers. 20 years was a long time. They had to learn each other all over again. Mary had so many questions. What was I like as a baby? She asked one evening as they sat together on the couch. Clara smiled, her eyes distant with memory. You were happy. Always smiling. You loved when I sang to you. Your favorite song was, You Are My Sunshine. You would fall asleep in my arms every night. Mary felt tears well up. I wish I could remember. You were so little, Clara said gently. Only 6 years old when they took you. It's not your fault you don't remember. Tell me about my father, Mary said. About Johnson. What was he really like? Clara's smile grew sad but warm. He was kind. Gentle. He made me laugh. He wasn't like other rich people. He didn't care about money or status. He just wanted to be happy. And when you were born, Mary, he was the proudest father I'd ever seen. He held you for hours just staring at your little face. He loved you so much. Did he know? Mary asked quietly. Did he know what his mother was like? He knew she was controlling, Clara said. That's why he was afraid to tell her about us. He was going to, eventually. He was planning to introduce us to her properly, to make her understand. But then, her voice broke. Then the accident happened. And he was gone. And I was alone with you trying to survive, and Veronica, she saw her chance. Mary took Clara's hand. I'm so sorry. For everything you went through. For everything she did to you. It wasn't your fault, Clara said firmly. None of it was your fault. You were just a child. But I grew up with her, Mary said, her voice filled with pain. I believed her lies. I never questioned her. I never looked for you. How could you? Clara asked. You thought I was dead. And even if you'd known I was alive, how would you have found me? Veronica made sure we stayed separated. Mary wiped her eyes. I wasted so much time. 20 years we could have had together. We have time now, Clara said, squeezing her hand. That's what matters. We have now. And tomorrow. And every day after that. They sat in silence for a moment, just holding hands, just being together. Mom? Mary said softly, testing the word. Clara's breath caught. Yes, baby? I love you, Mary whispered. Clara pulled her daughter into a tight hug, tears streaming down her face. I love you too. I never stopped loving you. Not for one single second. They held each other and cried, but this time they were tears of healing, not pain. Veronica, meanwhile, grew smaller and smaller. Not physically, she still lived in her mansion, still had her money, still owned her businesses. But inside she was shrinking. Every day she would sit in her study, looking at old photographs of Johnson. Of Mary as a child. Of the family she thought she'd built. But it had all been built on lies. And now it was gone. She tried calling Mary. Dozens of times. But Mary never answered. She tried sending letters. But they were returned unopened. She tried showing up at Mary's apartment. But Mary wouldn't let her in. Finally, Veronica stopped trying. She realized too late that some things can't be forced. Some things can't be bought. Some things once broken can never be fixed. She had wanted to own Mary. To control her. To keep her. But in doing so, she had lost her completely. 6 months after the truth came out, Mary and Clara visited Johnson's grave together. It was a sunny Saturday morning. The cemetery was quiet and peaceful. Birds sang in the trees and a gentle breeze made the grass sway. They stood in front of the marble stone, both holding flowers. Hi, Dad, Mary said softly. I finally know the truth now. About you and Mom. About how much you loved us. Clara placed her flowers on the grave. I'm sorry I couldn't protect our daughter, Johnson. I'm sorry for what happened. But I promise you, I'm taking care of her now. We're together again. Mary took her mother's hand. And we're going to be okay. Both of us. They stood there for a while just remembering. Just honoring the man who had loved them both. Then, as they were turning to leave, Mary saw someone standing far across the cemetery, half hidden behind a tree. Veronica. She was watching them from a distance, her face pale and sad, her shoulders slumped. For a moment their eyes met. Mary felt a flash of anger. Then pity. Then something else, something she didn't quite understand. Forgiveness? Not yet. Maybe not ever. But she understood in that moment that Veronica had lost everything. That she was alone. That her cruelty had destroyed her own happiness. And that was punishment enough. Mary turned away and walked with Clara toward the cemetery gates, toward the sunshine, toward their future. Veronica watched them go, tears rolling down her wrinkled cheeks. She had built an empire. She had accumulated wealth beyond imagination. She had controlled, manipulated, and dominated everyone around her. But in the end she had nothing. Because you can't buy love. You can't steal it. You can't force it. Love is only real when it's given freely. And Veronica had never learned that lesson, not until it was too late. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.